The series begins with Hee Do, an 18-year-old girl who loves fencing. Her dream of becoming an athlete is shattered when her school decides to stop all extracurricular activities due to a financial crisis. But Hee Do doesn't want to give up on her dream. She decides to transfer to Taeyong High School, where her idol, a national fencer named Urim, goes to school. Urim is Hee Do's hero and has just won an international championship. After school, Hee Do secretly watches Urim practice. She dreams of becoming a competitor one day, even though it seems impossible. She doesn't have a place to practice, and her mom doesn't want her to become an athlete. They often argue because her mom doesn't support her fencing. When Hee Do argues with her mom, she often loses control and gets angry at everyone, even strangers. One morning, she's upset because a handsome newspaper delivery guy named Baek Yi Jin accidentally damages her statue. In her bad mood, Hee Do lashes out at Baek Yi Jin. Baek Yi Jin had already been yelled at by his next-door neighbor, making him think that everyone in the village is very temperamental. The story continues with Baek Yi Jin, who works as a newspaper deliveryman and a freelancer. Baek Yi Jin lives in a small rented room near Hee Do's house. Before the financial crisis, he was rich and lived in a big, luxurious house with lots of rooms and many things like computers and musical instruments. His life now is very different. The next day, Hee Do becomes more determined to transfer to Taeyong High School to practice fencing. However, her parents don't allow her, so she decides to cause trouble at her current school, hoping they will punish her and let her transfer. Hee Do tries to get in trouble by challenging bullies and joining a gang fight, but her plan fails because she's not very good at being a troublemaker. Next, Hee Do tries going to a nightclub, thinking the police will catch her since she's still a high school student. Instead, she ends up as a drinking buddy for a man there and accidentally meets Baek Yi Jin. Baek Yi Jin's friends notice her beauty and try to offer her a drink. But then, Baek Yi Jin stops them, almost causing a fight. During this, Baek Yi Jin's friend mentions that Baek Yi Jin is now poor because of a lot of debt. Long story short, Hee Do finally leaves the club after Baek Yi Jin calms things down. After talking for a while, Baek Yi Jin takes Hee Do to the bookstore where he works. He wants to give her the comics she ordered. Besides being a newspaper deliveryman, Baek Yi Jin also works at the bookstore where Hee Do often goes. They met there before when Hee Do ordered her favorite comic. The next day, Hee Do asks her mom again if she can change schools, but her mom says no. Her mom gets really mad when she finds out Hee Do went to the club wearing sexy clothes and heavy makeup. Then, they have a big fight. Hee Do's mom tears up her comics and throws them away. Hee Do gets even angrier and tells her mom that she's always too busy to care about what Hee Do does. Her mom is a news anchor and never comes to Hee Do's matches. Hee Do feels lonely since her dad died, and comics are her escape. After school, Hee Do meets Coach Chunmi again. She begs to join the fencing club, promising to train hard and compete with her idol. Seeing her determination, the coach tests her by throwing an apple in the air, and Hee Do catches it with her sword. Passing the first test, Hee Do then faces a second, unusual test. She has to guess the number of coins in Coach Chunmi's hand. Hee Do keeps guessing wrong until all the coins are gone. Feeling disappointed, Hee Do cries. But then, she finds out she got accepted into Taeyong High School. This surprise is thanks to her mom. The day before, Hee Do's mom met with Coach Chunmi and asked her to accept Hee Do into the club. It turns out they knew each other and had some issues in the past, but now they've made up and decided to help each other. That morning, Hee Do started her first day at Taeyong High School. Because her mom is a famous news presenter, Hee Do got a special welcome from her teachers and friends. She quickly made a new friend named Jiwoong. Jiwoong is popular at school and has a crush on Urim. However, Urim doesn't seem to like Hee Do. After introductions, Urim told Hee Do to keep her distance. In a proud tone, Urim said many new kids joined the academy before, but they didn't last long because the strict practice hours and pressure from Coach Chunmi made them quit. As the day goes on, Hee Do faces Urim in their first fencing match. For Hee Do, this is a dream come true because she's competing against her favorite athlete. For Urim, it's a reminder of a past loss to Hee Do in a junior class match. In a close match, Urim loses to Hee Do again. Even though it's just a regular match, Urim feels very disappointed. As a national athlete, this loss is a big deal. She worries about facing more competitors like Hee Do in the future. Meanwhile, Yi Jin feels humiliated during a job interview. He doesn't meet the qualifications, and his education level is a problem. Yi Jin goes home and chats with Seung-won on the terrace. Seung-won is the class president at Hee Do's school, known for being diligent and strict. She is also the daughter of the boarding house owner where Yi Jin lives. As the days passed, Hee Do continued her usual activities. She started fencing regularly and got full support from her coach. She also learned new things, like Yi Jin being an alumnus of Taeyong High School. Yi Jin used to be part of the school's famous broadcasting club. He was handsome and came from a very rich family. In high school, he had a luxury car and a great life. But the financial crisis in Korea changed everything. Yi Jin's father ended up in huge debt, and their assets were seized. To escape debt collectors, his family split up, and Yi Jin had to find his own way in life. One night, Hee Do planned to meet Yi Jin to pay for the damaged comics. On the way, she saw Yi Jin being harassed by a debt collector. She overheard the debt collector saying he was upset with Yi Jin's father. Yi Jin promised to take responsibility and said he wouldn't be happy until the debt was paid. He also promised to work hard to fix his father's mistakes. After the debt collector left, Hee Do approached Yi Jin and asked him to eat ice cream together. They went to Taeyong High School and played in the fountain there. Even though it was a simple game, it made them very happy. Yi Jin could laugh even after all the bad things he had gone through. During a school break, Seung-won invited Hee Do to lunch at a shop owned by Yi Jin's former assistant. Besides eating, Seung-won wanted to learn more about Yi Jin, who was renting a room in her house. Hee Do said that Yi Jin was a newspaper delivery person who passed by her house every day. He was also an alumnus of Taeyong High School and had been in the broadcasting club. There, Seung-won kept asking if Hee Do had ever visited the shop. Hee Do replied that she used to stop by to see Yoo-reem, who was the daughter of the shop owner. However, Hee Do never greeted Yoo-reem and only watched her from a distance. After fencing practice, Hee Do and Yoo-reem heard that their favorite comic had a new episode out. They quickly ran to the bookstore to get a copy. At the first bookstore, Yoo-reem was too late and all the books were sold out. She then ran to the second bookstore, where Yi Jin worked. But again, Yoo-reem was disappointed because there was only one comic left, and Yi Jin was saving it for Hee Do. According to the store's rules, Hee Do, as a priority customer, got the last comic. At school, Coach Chunmi announced that one athlete would be sent to the national team competition next month, and Hee Do was chosen. The two athletes ranked above her had withdrawn, so Hee Do, being next in line, was selected. This was the happiest news for Hee Do, as her dream of becoming a national athlete was close to coming true. She remembered how her former coach had belittled her dreams. Feeling fully supported by Coach Chunmi, Hee Do felt this opportunity was a huge help for her career. That night, as Hee Do walked home through the alley near Seung-won's house, she saw Yi Jin's father yelling at someone. Not recognizing the man, Hee Do warned Yi Jin that a debt collector was heading to the bookstore. To avoid being caught, Hee Do told Yi Jin to hide while she pretended to be a clerk. Once it was safe, Hee Do asked Yi Jin to come out, and they walked home together. Hee Do happily shared that she had been selected for the national team tryouts. There, Yi Jin congratulated her and believed she would do her best. Soon after, they parted ways, but Yi Jin soon realized the person looking for him earlier was his father. Yi Jin chased his father to the bus terminal, not knowing Hee Do was following him. Just in time, Yi Jin caught up with his father, and they expressed their longing for each other. They didn't talk much, but Yi Jin hoped his family could be reunited. After returning home from meeting his father, Yi Jin runs into Hee Do, who is still looking for him. Hee Do followed him to apologize because she mistakenly thought Yi Jin's father was a debt collector. Hearing that, Yi Jin wasn't upset and told her he had met his father. As match day approached, Hee Do focused on her training with Coach Chunmi. Unlike her old school, the training here was very challenging. Hee Do had to do physical exercises like running, lifting weights, and dancing. She spent a lot of time at the academy, training from day to night. One night, Hee Do and Yoo-reem practiced together but didn't talk. During practice, their seniors came in and scolded them. Feeling strange, Hee Do tried to stand up to the senior, making the situation tense. But Yoo-reem apologized and promised not to repeat the mistake. Hee Do didn't agree with Yoo-reem's attitude, thinking it would make them get stepped on more. Yu believed fighting the seniors would only create more problems. Because of their different views, they argued. Yu seemed to belittle Hee Do's efforts, which made Hee Do very disappointed. She promised not to admire Yu anymore. Hee Do also felt let down by Yi Jin, who didn't take her side. She just wanted Yi Jin to say that Yu was wrong. In the end, only Injulmi understood Hee Do. Unbeknownst to Hee Do, Injulmi was actually Yu. Meanwhile, because she went against her senior, Hee Do was scolded by the coach. The coach thought Hee Do had no strategy when facing her opponent. Even when she first joined Chunmi Academy, Hee Do didn't show much motivation. In another place, Yi Jin failed another job interview, even though he tried his best. During the interview, Yi Jin met his brother, who offered him a check for 100 million. But there, Yi Jin refused to take it. Feeling frustrated, Yi Jin drank and went home half drunk. He was in a bad mood, but seeing Hee Do's cute behavior made him feel better. Yi Jin even managed to smile. Hee Do, on the other hand, felt disappointed in herself because of what Coach Chunmi said. Hee Do asked Yi Jin to tease her to make her problems seem funny. Yi Jin felt happy being near Hee Do. However, the next day, Yi Jin got annoyed because Hee Do posted about his failed interview, and everyone around found out. Neighbors gave him encouraging words, which he found a bit embarrassing. At school, the seniors were talking about Yu and Hee Do practicing fencing the night before. While they were busy talking, Hee Do suddenly showed up, looking like she wanted to challenge the senior to a duel. But she was actually there to apologize for practicing at night. She promised not to do it again because she wanted the seniors to have the chance to practice at night too. Hee Do even begged as a strategy to get permission from her seniors. When Hee Do came home from school, she ran into the guy she had fought with before when she pretended to be in a gang fight. Soon after, the guy, with his gang friends, chased Hee Do to the main road. Luckily, she met Yi Jin, who didn't want to help at first because he was still upset with her. But since it was an emergency, Yi Jin decided to help, and they drove away in his luxury car. During this funny but tense moment, Hee Do got to interact with Yu. Yu came with Ji-won, who was bringing food to Yi Jin. After that, they all ate food from Sungwon's mom and took photos together for memories. After finishing her physical training, Hee Do moved to the next stage, competing. She had to fight Coach Chunmi. Even though she lost, Coach Chunmi thought Hee Do's skills had improved a lot. After the match, Hee Do stayed to practice more. Yi Jin secretly brought her a drink, and they chatted together. Yi Jin even tried on fencing clothes. Curious, Yi Jin invited Hee Do to a match. He lost many points, but finally won by cheating. At the end of their time together, Yi Jin told Hee Do he was inspired by her spirit. He promised to support her in fencing, win or lose, because she gave him hope. Yi Jin was the only person who openly supported Hee Do's career. But on the day of her fencing match, something unexpected happened, and Yi Jin had to move out of town. That day, Hee Do won the match and joined the Korean national fencing team. She won after a tough fight, dealing with failure, cheating, and getting emotional. Her victory made everyone proud, including her mom. But sadly, Hee Do couldn't find Yi Jin at the shop or at Sungwon's house. Sungwon's mom said Yi Jin left town with his younger brother and didn't say when he would return. For Hee Do, Yi Jin's departure was a great sadness. He even returned the fencing sword that she had given him. Before leaving, Yi Jin knew that Hee Do had qualified for the Korean national team selection. Meanwhile, Yi Jin and his younger brother were on their way to an uncle's house outside Seoul. That afternoon, Yi Jin got a call saying debt collectors had visited his younger brother at his school. Angry, Yi Jin beat up the person who threatened his younger brother and ended up dealing with the police. After that, Yi Jin decided to leave Seoul to live with his uncle and mother. He planned to find a job and send his younger brother to school in the city. Even though he had to part with Hee Do, Yi Jin believed he could return someday. After passing the selection, Hee Do entered the national fencing team dormitory to prepare for the match. She shared a room with Yu, who still didn't like Hee Do's presence. There, Yu showed her seniority by asking Hee Do to be quiet at night. Ironically, Yu snored, making it hard for Hee Do to sleep. Back at school, Yu met Ji-won, who pretended not to know her. Ji-won did this to repay Yu for treating him indifferently at Sungwon's house. At that time, Yurim was panicking because Yi Jin had left without saying goodbye. Understanding Yurim's feelings, Ji-woong asked why she was so close to Yi Jin. Yurim explained that Yi Jin's family had been the main donor when she joined the fencing academy. This close relationship made them feel like siblings. Deciding to disappear for a while, Yi Jin works at his uncle's fish auction. He works day and night to help pay off his father's debt. However, his younger brother doesn't appreciate his hard work and feels embarrassed by Yi Jin's job, still thinking of himself as a rich man's son. One day at work, Yi Jin sees the news about Yurim winning the gold medal and Hee Do getting the bronze medal. Yi Jin is very happy and grateful that Hee Do is getting closer to her dream. That night, he texts Hee Do, promising to return before episode 15 of their favorite comic comes out. After several months, Yi Jin returns to Seoul and plans to take journalism training. 3 years later, he gets an internship at the news agency where Hee Do's mother works. To get the internship, Yi Jin had to endure many challenges from his colleagues and superiors. After competing abroad, Hee Do and Yurim returned to school to take their semester exams. Now in grade 3, they are still in the same class as Ji-woong and Sung-won. Not much has changed cause Ji-woong is still trying to get close to Yurim, and Sung-won is still excelling in class. Meanwhile, Hee Do is busy with her practice and still can't get along well with Yurim, even though they see each other often and share the same dormitory. After school, Yurim and Hee Do play trial matches to prepare for the Asian Sports Week. At that time, Yurim loses again to her opponent, and the coach warns her. To beat Hee Do at the Asian Sports Week, Yurim is told to increase her training duration until the evening. That afternoon, Yi Jin was with a senior reporter covering a labor demonstration in downtown Seoul. While on top of a building, Yi Jin spotted Hee Do walking in the crowd. Without thinking, he went down to try and find her. Despite searching everywhere, Yi Jin couldn't find Hee Do and started to lose hope. Then, Hee Do noticed him and called out his name. When they finally met, Hee Do told Yi Jin that she had just had a fight with Yurim. They still couldn't get along, even though Hee Do used to idolize Yurim. Yi Jin shared that he was interning at the news agency where Hee Do's mother worked. Hee Do's mother hadn't told Yi Jin to keep it private. After catching up, Hee Do suggested they eat together, not just the two of them. She invited her boyfriend, whom she had met on the plane to Korea. They had only been together for 3 days, but Hee Do felt they were a good match and wanted to be serious. She wasn't shy about showing her affection in front of Yi Jin. Meanwhile, the international class fencing tournament began. Yi Jin was assigned to cover the event and interview the athletes, including Hee Do and Yurim. The first match was won by Yurim, who advanced to the final round. In the second leg, Hee Do also won, setting up a final match between her and Yurim. After a night's rest, the Korean national fencing team competed in the final round. Before the match, Hee Do warmed up and checked her fencing sword. She realized her sword was mixed up with a Japanese player's sword. The Japanese team was on tour outside Seoul and not competing. Determined to use her own sword, Hee Do decided to take a train to catch up with the national team group. There, she managed to swap the swords and headed back to the arena. However, the train Hee Do was on got stuck. With no time to waste, she got off and ran as fast as she could. On her way, she met Yi Jin, who had come to pick her up. They rushed to the arena with a police escort since Hee Do was an athlete. Thankfully, they arrived just in time. Soon after, Hee Do quickly warmed up and got ready for the match. In the final, Hee Do faced Yurim to compete for the championship title. At that time, defensive, attacking, and strategic skills were crucial. At first, Hee Do struggled, losing many points due to the mental pressure of facing Yurim. But as Coach Chunmi said, Hee Do was agile and could recover quickly. Shortly after, she started catching up and eventually tied the score with Yurim. With 1 point left to decide the champion, the match was very tense. Suddenly, Yurim's sword broke, causing her to lose concentration. After calming down, they resumed the match, each trying to score the final point. In a matter of seconds, both attacked, but the referee saw Hee Do's attack as faster. In the end, Hee Do was declared as the champion. Hearing that, Yurim protested, believing she was faster, but the judge's decision was final. Finally, Hee Do and Yurim stood on the podium to receive their medals. In this dramatic moment, Yurim couldn't hide her disappointment and cried in front of everyone. Many fans were upset, thinking the referee's decision was a big mistake. The media where Yi Jin worked even claimed that Hee Do's win was a fraud, suggesting she had bribed the referee. Things got worse when Yoo told journalists that she was much faster than Hee Do, fueling the speculation about Hee Do's victory being a fraud. Feeling cornered, Hee Do decided to step down and leave her gold medal behind. Yoo also left, leading to the coach's anger in front of the journalists. That night, Hee Do left without telling anyone, not even Yi Jin. However, news of her victory kept spreading in various media, including where her mother and Yi Jin worked. Hee Do's mother, acting as a news anchor, announced that the match was invalid. She tried to be professional, even though it was her own daughter involved. At work, Yi Jin was upset with his boss for reporting false news about Hee Do. His boss ignored his concerns and warned him to stay away from Hee Do to protect her privacy. At Yi Jin's request that night, Hee Do decided to return to the dormitory and accept the coach's decision. According to the rules, Hee Do and Yoo were asked to go home and might not be able to continue fencing. Too scared to go home, Hee Do wandered the streets and ordered food at a shop. Some people recognized her as a fencing athlete, and Hee Do was moved to tears because there were still people who supported her. The referee from the match even stated that the result was fair and without any coercion, thanks to Yi Jin persuading him to clear up any wrong speculations. That night, Hee Do went back to school and planned to stay at the base camp. Unfortunately, the security guard locked the door from the outside. Soon after, Hee Do called Yi Jin for help, and with the assistance of Ji Woong and Sung Won, they managed to get Hee Do out. However, Hee Do accidentally saw Yi Jin with his former girlfriend and found a recording of them, making her very jealous. Instead of understanding Hee Do's feelings, Yi Jin scolded her for not wanting to go home. He was disappointed because she kept worrying him and chose to go to school instead of going home. Turns out, since becoming a reporter, Yi Jin's life had improved. He saved money to pay off his father's debts and planned to rent a bigger house, which happened to belong to Sungwon's mother. At that time, Yi Jin chose that house to be closer to the office and, of course, Hee Do. That afternoon, Yi Jin asked Ji Woong, Hee Do, and Sung Won to help him pack. While going through Yi Jin's old things, Hee Do found a photo of Yi Jin with a woman. Yoo explained that it was Yi Jin's ex-girlfriend, and they had dated for a long time. Hearing this, Hee Do felt jealous but didn't want to admit it. She openly expressed her disappointment to Yi Jin, but he still didn't realize it. Starting from her bad mood, Hee Do accidentally made things worse. She broke Yi Jin's bedroom window with her sports equipment, and Yi Jin, feeling annoyed, scolded Hee Do for making the situation more chaotic. But behind his anger, he was caring, making sure Hee Do didn't get hurt by the glass and bringing food closer when she couldn't reach it. Since the fencing match controversy, Hee Do tried to avoid her mother even though they lived in the same house. Conversations often ended in arguments, making things even tenser. One night, Hee Do's mother wanted to give her the gold medal coach Chunmi had entrusted to her, but they argued, and her mom decided to keep it. For the first time, Yi Jin received a scolding from Hee Do's mother, his senior, because he accidentally hung up the phone during a broadcast. Yi Jin did this because his laptop was broken, and he didn't memorize the news script, so he had no choice but to hang up. Feeling disappointed, Yi Jin went home and met Hee Do on the bus. Even though they were supposed to stay away from each other, they still met and ate ice cream together. That night, Hee Do got angry with Yi Jin for teasing her about the ice cream stuck to her cheek. She felt embarrassed about looking childish in front of the person she liked. At that time, Hee Do wanted to appear mature, smart, and reliable in front of Yi Jin. The day passed. Hee Do and Yoo returned to fencing practice during their suspension from the Federation. While packing her things at the dormitory, Hee Do saw Yoo sitting by the swimming pool, looking troubled and wiping away tears. Turns out, Yoo mom had been cheated by the owner of their rented shop, losing all her money, so Yoo couldn't afford to buy new gloves for fencing. Suddenly, Yoo stood up and jumped into the pool, crying because she couldn't bear to see her parents suffer. That night, Hee Do shared her worries about Yoo with her online friend, Injulmi. At that time, they decided to meet in the city park, and Injulmi, who was actually Yoo, asked Hee Do to bring yellow flowers so she would recognize her. The day of their meeting arrived. Yoo came with Yi Jin, who was worried because Yoo wanted to meet someone whose gender and name she didn't know. When Hee Do arrived with yellow flowers, Reem was shocked to see that her online friend was Hee Do. Surprised and confused, Reem gave the flowers to Yi Jin, making Hee Do think that Yi Jin was in Julmi. Not wanting any misunderstandings, Yi Jin told Hee Do that he was not in Julmi. However, he didn't reveal who in Julmi really was because Reem had asked him not to. Embarrassed by her mistake, Hee Do avoided Yi Jin both on the phone and in person. Meanwhile, Reem, now knowing that Hee Do was her online friend, became friendlier and less cynical towards her. The next day, the media company where Yi Jin works is planning to make a documentary about the fencing athletes at Hee Do's school. Yi Jin is responsible for interviewing Hee Do and Reem. When Yi Jin arrives at Hee Do's school to start filming, the atmosphere is awkward because Hee Do is still avoiding him. Unable to stand the tension, Yi Jin asks Hee Do to talk alone. He wants her to stop avoiding him over a misunderstanding. Meanwhile, Hee Do, unable to hold back her feelings, finally lets out her emotions. She was very embarrassed about what happened and has feelings for Yi Jin but can't express them. After practice, Reem received a gift from her mother, and it was a cell phone. Instead of feeling happy, Reem felt disappointed because she knew her family was struggling financially and didn't want her parents to spend money on luxury items. Soon after, news about Reem's family's financial troubles spread among their friends. Reem overheard some friends saying bad things about her family. And Hee Do, hearing the rude comments, immediately defended Reem and attacked the people talking about her. After that, Reem joined in, defending Hee Do. This incident made Reem realize that Hee Do was a good friend. Reem confessed that she was in Julmi and apologized for being rude to Hee Do. She admitted that Hee Do understood and cared about her the most. Then, they forgave each other and hugged, shedding tears. The next day, filming of the documentary for the fencing athletes officially began. Following Yi Jin's instructions, Hee Do and Reem were asked to act naturally and not hide anything. Since they were getting along well, Hee Do and Reem seemed very close and caring towards each other in front of Yi Jin. They even looked like best friends who didn't want each other to get hurt. Surprisingly, Reem and Hee Do ate together for the first time. Curious, Yi Jin asked about what happened between them. Hee Do explained that she found out Reem was in Julmi, and now they were trying to be good friends. At that time, the documentary filming went through several sessions and reached the main session. According to the director's instructions, they had to react the controversial scene from the previous match. After several takes, the director wasn't satisfied and asked for more. Fed up, Reem accidentally stepped on Hee Do's foot, causing her to fall. A staff member called Yi Jin, who was in the editing room. Without thinking, Yi Jin ran to the set to check on Hee Do. He argued with the director before finally carrying Hee Do back home. There, Hee Do felt embarrassed being carried by Yi Jin, but something else made her even more flustered. Suddenly, Yi Jin confessed his feelings to her. However, she couldn't process his words, even though she felt the same way. The next day, Hee Do still couldn't believe Yi Jin had expressed his feelings. Even without giving an answer, she couldn't hide her happiness. After arguing with the director, Yi Jin decided to apologize. Instead of being welcomed, he faced racism for only graduating from high school. The director criticized Yi Jin's attitude, calling him arrogant even though he was no longer rich. During a dinner with colleagues, a division head also brought up Yi Jin's education, trying to belittle him in front of everyone. Aware of his position, Yi Jin didn't let his emotions take over. That night, he drank more but didn't get very drunk. Meanwhile, Reem, who received another gift from her parents, felt increasingly uncomfortable and sad. That night, she called Ji-woong to meet and share her feelings. Ji-woong told her that she was lucky to have a family who cared about her, unlike many others, including himself, who don't have parental support. That night, Ji-woong also wanted to confess his feelings to Reem but was still searching for the right moment, even though Reem already suspected what he was going to say. To celebrate the success of the documentary, Yi Jin planned a beach holiday for Reem, Hee Do, Ji-woong, and Seung-won. After getting permission from Seung-won's mother, they all left in Yi Jin's car. He took them to a beach near his uncle's house, where they could meet his younger brother and mother. Since the group was large, Yi Jin rented a place for them to stay overnight before returning to Seoul the next day. After changing clothes, Hee Do, Ji-woong, Seung-won, and Reem played in the water at the beach while Yi Jin documented and recorded their activities. Besides filming, Yi Jin also took care of everything, including cooking. Despite having many friends with him, none were reliable enough to help, even with grilling meat. After dinner, they each shared stories about their families. Turns out, Ji-woong, Hee Do, Yoo-reem, and Sung-won all had different family problems. But these issues didn't make them hate each other. Instead, their friendship grew stronger, and they realized it could last forever. After completing his internship, Yi Jin officially became a fencing sports reporter. To celebrate, he invited Hee Do to dinner at a restaurant his family used to visit. At that time, Yi Jin wanted to thank Hee Do because, thanks to her, he was able to achieve his dream. They promised to always remember that night as a special memory. Even though Yi Jin and Hee Do's mother worked at the same TV station, Yi Jin rarely met or talked with her. He only discovered that Hee Do's mother was a reporter when he lent her his phone a few days ago. Despite not seeing each other often, Yi Jin was impressed by her dedication and responsibility at work. He saw her professionalism when she presented the news even while feeling down. However, Hee Do couldn't understand her mother's sacrifices and thought she was too obsessed with work. One night, they argued because her mother chose to come home late instead of helping fix a chair left by Hee Do's father. Hee Do also mentioned her mother's absence at her father's funeral. At that time, her mother was also heartbroken by her husband's death, but chose to fulfill her work duties. Since then, Hee Do's relationship with her mother had been strained, and they often disagreed. That night, Hee Do discovered that the chair left by her father was missing because her mother had thrown it away on purpose. She was so upset that she cried, and Yi Jin, who had just come home from work, saw her. They tried to find the chair but couldn't. Yi Jin, knowing that Hee Do had fought with her mother, talked about his admiration for her mother's professionalism. However, Yi Jin felt sad because what he admired was part of what disappointed Hee Do. Then, he suggested that Hee Do learn to make her own chair with a carpenter. Yi Jin believed her father would be prouder of her for doing that than seeing her cry over the lost chair. The next day, Yi Jin came to the practice site to pick up Yoo-reem and Hee Do, saying it was for the documentary. In reality, he wanted to take them to Ji-woong's concert. After getting permission from Coach Chun-mi, they went to the concert. When they arrived, Ji-woong had an argument with his girlfriend, and one of the guitarists ran away. At that time, Ji-woong needed a replacement, and Yi Jin stepped in. There, Yi Jin, who used to be in a band, performed easily and excited the audience. During the main event, Ji-woong bravely expressed his feelings for Yoo-reem. They agreed to start dating and shared the happy news with Hee Do, Yi Jin, and Sung-won. That night, they all watched fireworks from the top floor of the school building, feeling happy. The next day, Hee Do's first day of chair-making practice began. While working, she saw a broken chair that looked like her father's. She asked about it and found out it was indeed her father's chair, which her mother had taken to the carpenter to be repaired. Hee Do felt very guilty for thinking her mother had thrown it away. While visiting her father's grave, Hee Do's mother suddenly burst into tears. For the first time, she admitted that she really missed her husband and was almost going crazy because she couldn't forget their time together. After this emotional moment, Hee Do's relationship with her mother started to improve. However, this didn't last long. Hee Do decided to stop studying and focus on being an athlete, a decision her mother didn't approve of because she thought an athlete's salary wasn't enough to live on. Meanwhile, Yeji got angry with Coach Chun-mi because Yeji wanted to quit fencing to focus on school and graduate this year. Coach Chun-mi didn't believe that was the real reason and wanted Yeji to stay in the fencing group. Yeji's decision to stop fencing got full support from Yoo-reem and Hee Do, who even protested by refusing to train if Coach Chun-mi didn't let Yeji leave. Outside the fencing academy, a teacher at Taeyong High School hit a student, this time Ji-woong, just because he wore a trendy t-shirt. On the other hand, Sung-won, fed up with the teacher's behavior, reported it to the police. However, the police didn't take it seriously and handed the matter back to the school. After much insistence, Coach Chun-mi finally agreed to consider Yeji's choice to stop fencing. However, before quitting, Yeji had to win the national match and reach the semi-finals. If Yeji succeeded, she could stop fencing. Yeji accepted the terms and promised to do her best. She was trained by Yoo-reem and Hee Do from morning until late evening. At the national fencing competition, Yeji won and kept her promise to Coach Chun-mi. Although Yeji was asked to stay, she decided to leave, just like Sung-won, who chose to leave school after the violent teacher found out she had talked about the violence on the radio. That day, Sung-won said goodbye to her friends, and although Ji-woong didn't want her to leave, she was determined to go. To celebrate their friends' new paths, Hee Do and Yoo-rim gave Ye-ji and Sung-won a surprise farewell party. They promised to stay in touch and support each other, no matter what paths they chose. Time flew by, and soon it was New Year's Eve. To celebrate, Hee Do, Yoo-rim, Ji-woong, and Sung-won decided to gather at Ye-jin's house. However, due to a rumor about a nuclear apocalypse, Yoo-rim, Sung-won, and Ji-woong decided to go home. At that time, Hee Do stayed at Ye-jin's house, and they talked about their wishes before the supposed apocalypse. Hee Do said she wouldn't do anything special before it happened. Then, as the new year began, she kissed Ye-jin. After the kiss, Ye-jin started avoiding Hee Do, as if he didn't share the same feelings. He remembered his senior's advice that reporters shouldn't get too close to athletes. However, just like Hee Do, Ye-jin couldn't hide his feelings from anyone, including Coach Chun-mi. That night, they drank together and talked about the closeness between athletes and reporters. In the past, Coach Chun-mi and Hee Do's mother had a very close relationship as a reporter and a fencer. However, their closeness was exploited by people who asked Hee Do's mother to make news about Coach Chun-mi's family being involved in bribery. This scandal strained their relationship, and now they dislike each other. Because of this, Coach Chun-mi indirectly discouraged the relationship between Hee Do and Ye-jin. The next day, Hee Do couldn't focus on training because she kept thinking about Ye-jin, even though the competition was just days away. She admitted to Yoo-rim that she was very afraid of losing Ye-jin. Hee Do regretted not expressing her feelings sooner, making their relationship unclear. Upon hearing that, Yoo-rim advised her that expressing feelings is a risk, but it's better to be honest than to keep it inside. One day before the match, Hee Do met Ye-jin to talk about their relationship. Following Yoo-rim's advice, Hee Do expressed her feelings, ready for whatever might happen. Ye-jin, however, didn't give her an answer, putting their relationship on hold again. He felt jealous that Hee Do could easily express her feelings while he struggled. Then, Ye-jin encouraged Hee Do for her match the next morning before leaving. The next morning, Ye-jin returned to cover Hee Do and Yoo-rim's fencing match. Both Hee Do and Yoo-rim failed to win the title in the single phase, but they achieved victory in the group phase, with Hee Do as the final decider. After the match, Ye-jin wrote a news report praising the results of the match. However, his choice of words made it clear that he was close to one of the fencers. Because of this, Ye-jin received warnings and considered moving to another division to avoid covering sports news. His boss, however, didn't allow him to move and suggested he focus on his work. That night, Hee Do met Ye-jin to clarify their relationship or possibly end it. For the first time, Ye-jin explained why they couldn't be together. With a heavy heart, he left Hee Do, hoping to end things. However, unable to deny his feelings, Ye-jin returned and kissed Hee Do to show that he truly liked her. Then, they officially started dating and shared the news with their friends. To celebrate, they drank together and ended up getting drunk at Ye-jin's house. Meanwhile, Yoo-rim received news that her father had been in a car accident. He hit another car, seriously injuring the other driver. Although Yoo-rim's father survived, the victim's family demanded compensation, causing stress and arguments with his wife. Unable to cope, Yoo-rim decided to stop fencing in Korea and change her citizenship to Russia to start her career there. With a high-paying contract, Yoo-rim hoped to help her parents with the compensation costs. Soon after, Yoo-rim discussed her plan with Hee Do, Ji-woong, and her parents. Despite initial resistance, they eventually supported her decision. Shortly after, Yoo-rim was working on the transfer papers and signing a contract with a new club in Russia. During this process, Coach Chun-mi supported her every step of the way. However, Ye-jin couldn't accept Yoo-rim's decision. Instead of stopping her, he made her move public in the media, causing an uproar in Korea. After the news about Yoo-rim moving to Russia went viral, Hee Do met Ye-jin and expressed her disappointment. She thought Ye-jin was using other people's problems just to boost news ratings. Since then, Hee Do and Ye-jin stopped talking and distanced themselves from each other. Hee Do focused on supporting Yoo-rim, who was facing a lot of criticism. Journalists even followed Hee Do to school, trying to find Yoo-rim. Luckily, Hee Do always helped and supported Yoo-rim, even taking her away from school to avoid the journalists. That night, Yurim stayed at Hee Do's house before leaving for Russia the next day. Yurim admitted she didn't really want to move and wished she could stay in Korea with Hee Do. However, her family's financial situation forced her to make this difficult decision and become a Russian citizen. The next day, Yurim prepared to fly abroad alone. At the airport, her parents, Sung-won, and Hee Do were there to say goodbye. It was hard for everyone to see Yurim leave. Hee Do couldn't hold back her tears when parting with Yurim. Meanwhile, Ji-woong was racing to the airport in his mother's car, trying to catch Yurim before she left. He arrived just in time to see her before she got on the plane. At that time, Yurim promised to wait for Ji-woong forever. Ji-woong promised not to date or be interested in other girls and hoped Yurim would do the same. On the other hand, Yi Jin felt the worst about Yurim's move to Russia, especially since he was partly responsible for the backlash she faced. However, Hee Do was there for him. She wanted to understand his reasons and didn't want to keep blaming him. Meanwhile, Yurim's life started to improve after moving to Russia. She often contacted Hee Do, and they shared stories. A few months later, Ji-woong saved enough money to join his girlfriend in Russia. Sung-won planned to go to university and continue her education. Yi Jin, on the other hand, moved from the sports division to the general news section. He was also honest with Hee Do's mother about his relationship with her daughter. After switching divisions, Yi Jin's work hours became much busier. He had to travel to various places to gather news. Despite his busy schedule, Yi Jin still made time to meet Hee Do. One night, they drank together until Hee Do got drunk and slept at Yi Jin's house. Moments later, Hee Do participated in another international match, this time in Madrid. She was excited to meet Yurim there, but instead of a reunion, Hee Do was hesitant. She didn't want their friendship to affect her concentration. During the match, they showcased their skills and eventually faced each other in the final. This was their third final match, and just like before, Hee Do won with a close score of 15-14. However, this time there was no controversy. They hugged each other, making the arena cheer. Their hug showed everyone that Hee Do and Yurim were still good friends. As soon as the match was over, Hee Do immediately returned to Korea to prepare for her next competition. As usual, she contacted Yi Jin and asked to meet up. They had planned a holiday together while she was in Korea. However, that night, Yi Jin suddenly canceled their plans and said goodbye, explaining that he had to cover a story in New York. They had planned to celebrate Hee Do's victory and had prepared many things. At that time, Yi Jin only left a letter apologizing for not being able to keep his promise. In New York, Yi Jin was assigned to cover a war zone. It was difficult and dangerous, and he often faced rejection. His days were filled with reporting on the news and witnessing tragic events. Yi Jin felt depressed and really missed Hee Do. One night, Yi Jin called Hee Do and said that his life felt like hell. He promised to come home for New Year's and probably wouldn't go back to New York. However, when New Year's Eve arrived, Yi Jin hadn't returned. Hee Do heard from her mother that Yi Jin had registered as a correspondent in New York. Before returning to Korea the next month, Yi Jin contacted Hee Do to check in, but her response was cold. She had learned that Yi Jin would stay abroad as a correspondent. Hearing this, Hee Do asked Yi Jin not to feel guilty towards her. With a heavy heart, she supported Yi Jin's decision, even though she wanted to scream inside. The day Yi Jin returned to Korea happened to be the same day Hee Do returned from her competition. At the airport, their suitcases got swapped by mistake. Yi Jin went to Hee Do's house to exchange the suitcases. When they met, the feelings were awkward and strange. Things were not going well, so Yi Jin suggested ending their relationship, and Hee Do agreed. They felt it was better to part ways than to stay together and hurt each other. After deciding to separate, Yi Jin and Hee Do had to deal with everything that came with it, including comments from friends and changing small things like their shared phone plan. Even small things like this could cause misunderstandings. Hee Do and Yi Jin often argued due to different perceptions. Hee Do felt that they only loved each other during happy times, but during tough times, they became a burden to each other. This is why they believed separation was the best choice. They still loved each other, but their pride got in the way. Even when Yi Jin was going to New York, he wanted to see Hee Do, and they couldn't hide their sadness, crying together. Despite this, they still decided to part ways, but they remained on good terms. Several months passed, and Yi Jin's life had changed a lot. He had become a news presenter, replacing Hee Do's mother. He was also able to reunite his family and now lived in a large house. Meanwhile, Hee Do was still busy with her activities as an athlete and had just won a gold medal. However, she planned to retire soon and move on to other things. One day, Yi Jin attended the funeral of Seungwon's father, where Hee Do, Reem, and Ji-woong were also present. In the waiting room, Yi Jin chatted with Seungwon, who mentioned that she and Ji-woong both had jobs now. Reem had decided to retire and become a fencing coach. On the other hand, Hee Do was in San Francisco for a fencing competition and won another gold medal. The news of her victory reached the Korean media, and Yi Jin was ready to interview her. This was the first time they interacted since their breakup. Although it was awkward, they both tried to be professional in front of the camera. At that time, Yi Jin felt proud and supportive of his ex-girlfriend. After the interview, Hee Do held a press conference attended by Reem. She felt lucky to be surrounded by supportive people throughout her career. Even though she couldn't be with Yi Jin, she still cherished their happy memories and valued their friendship. The series ends. The moral lesson from this series is if you're a fencing athlete, don't date a reporter. It's going to be a bad news.